Good evening. Welcome along to the Gwladys Beat. I'm glad you could join us. Along with me tonight, we've got Dawn, we've got Scott. We had a little chat. We thought we might just, ignore all the noise and just purely focus on the football in this show tonight. But on the basis there hasn't been much football for quite a few games, and that's probably led to where we are, we decided we go the other way. So don't worry, we will be having a little chat around who replaces our manager and other bits and pieces. But I think it all came about probably because whilst, if I'm a cynic, Everton were not planning on sacking him. I think they thought they'd let him buy a few players. We got Richarlison, DCL back in place. And we just had to go and win at Norwich and the world would start to look a better place, wouldn't it? Which didn't quite happen. So, Scott, Dawn, where did it all go wrong?
To be honest, I was optimistic when I seen the lineup for the Norwich game. I did think this was a good chance, and you just knew. Do you know, as soon as that own goal went in, you knew, and it was the closest I've ever been to not watching any more of that game because you just knew, and I hung on, and 93 seconds later. Yeah. I wished I would have turned off, and it's just hard because I do feel for Rafa. I'm glad he's gone now, but there's a lot to be answered for by the players in every game. I mean, the amount of mistakes I think, but I suppose the manager's the one who's got to get a tune out of the players, and if you're not doing that, you've got to go. But that game was just there was periods in the game where they looked all right. I think it got overwrote about in the press about how bad it was because there was things like Norwich run riot. I don't think they run riot, but it was poor. But we had enough about us there where we probably should have got a result out of that game, and the current situation was they just haven't got it in them.
Did he help himself, Dawn, with that team selection?
Well, the first thing 4-4-2, he must have been watching you on the podcast, Scott.
I thought that myself.
He even started Rondon. I mean, when I saw Rondon, I thought, oh, he's got to go just for that selection. I know you like him, Scott, but yeah, I think. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, when I see, I don't see play Calvert-Lewin, you can't play the two of them together.
No.
They both need someone to play off them.
Yeah. I think 4-4-2, I mean, obviously Alan wasn't there, was he? I would assume he would have gone 4-3-3 if Alan was available, which for me is what the team's crying out for because we definitely need three players in the middle. I didn't go the match. I couldn't face it. So I streamed it, and the stream died just after the Keane Oggy, and I was quite happy with that because I didn't want to watch anymore. I think Mikalenko needed to block that cross, didn't. Keane's positioning was terrible. How he's off balance and he's putting it in his own net. Just the players do have to be held to account, but we've gone backwards under his reign. I'm not sure what you think, Nick, but the things that he's known for, shoring up your defence and stuff, we've just gone backwards.
Yeah, we have, and maybe we'll get into it a little bit later as to how unlucky he may or may not have been. But at the end of the day, he had the cards in his hand on Saturday, and playing a team that hadn't scored in 6 games must have been low on confidence. You just needed to get in the faces, get the first goal again, and watch them wobble. And he you're right, he got it wrong on a number of levels, putting Rondon in. I'm sorry, people have argued with me elsewhere and gone, yeah, but was Richarlison fit? I would have started him and got 60 minutes out of him, been 2 goals up, and then took him off rather than do what he did. I think Scott's spot on. You can't play 2 quasi target men up front and just bang the ball up. It wasn't going to work. It was just a number of things were wrong, really, and it went badly wrong for him, unfortunately, which inevitably led to the hysteria on Twitter on Saturday night, and the inevitable announcement Sunday tea time, which is a bit strange, wasn't it? I thought they were probably going to leave it till Monday, and then they sort of snuck it out. Was it about 4 o'clock or something Sunday afternoon?
Yeah.
Strange time to do it, wasn't it? But maybe they just felt the need to do it at that particular time. But I think for me, it was the old jokes, though, that weren't even funny anymore. You know, the lad that got Norwich's second goal hadn't scored first Premier League goal. You know, literally, I have to say, I sitting there at half time, and I stuck a fiver on that USA lad that they've got, because he hadn't scored in his career yet either, had he? He was going to get the third one, which actually bubbled me. So I lost money on that one, same as I keep on John Joe Kenny to get the first booking. But so, yeah, we won't talk about gambling because I don't do it very well, but it wasn't good. And I dig around it as we can. I'm not sure there was much more to say about that game.
See, do you know what shocks me though is it's just like Dawn said, they have gone backwards, no question about it.
Yeah.
Because the playing out from the back, I mean, the amount of times we give the ball away in the second half, it got to 46 minutes, 30 seconds in, and we'd give the ball away without getting tackled 4 times.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, it's absolutely woeful. Like, use manage kids teams. You wouldn't expect that out of kids, and you know, these are professionals, and fair enough, they're under pressure. You got to get your heads up. You've got to get your heads up and find a blue shirt. And the best way to not put yourself under pressure is keep the ball, not just give it back. It just, I'm just so fed up. I'm not even messing. Wow. When I first met you, when I started coming on here, I was Mr. Positive. Now I'm Mr. Positive. Me hairline's receding. I think that's.
And we're all alcoholics as well. That's what everyone does.
Let's go out to therapy session, couldn't we? There's that many people probably miserable going, oh, I know. Everyone agreeing with what we're saying.
Honestly, I'm cutting onions. I'm not crying.
I know.
The thing is, that, like, when you're talking about the players and stuff, like a few of my mates that did go the game, like Gordon, nothing was going right for him all game, but he worked his socks off. And most of the time, the likes of Richarlison doesn't. I know players are low on confidence, but the way, like, do you remember when was it Martinez's last season when Lennon come in? And Lennon's work rate, I mean, he's never been an amazing player, but his work rate was top. And Baines had said he embarrassed everyone because he worked so hard. That's what we need now. They need to rocket up the backside, and we need someone to lead and to, you know, like you see on other teams when they make a mistake. I mean, Van Dijk's the first one to point at people when they do something wrong. We need someone who does that. Seamus is nice.
Do you know the only player recently who I've seen done that was it? Do you remember when Delph first come?
Yeah.
He was going to the move. You aren't moving. What are you doing? We've got the ball. You aren't moving, and he really laid into him. But it just so happens that he's gone crap since he come to Everton as well.
Well, I think if you remember, I don't know if it's the same game, Scott, where he shouted, "We're all bleep," and then next minute he scored an oggy, and then he stopped talking.
He hasn't spoke since.
Yeah.
It's a bit like people say with dogs. If you put a dog in a miserable household, the dog goes sad. It's a bit like if you put a player in Everton, they go shite, isn't it? It's sort of.
You know what it is? Know what it is? Sometimes though, it's like they've just after Martinez. When Martinez first came, the end of that first season where we were flying, 70-odd points, finished fifth.
Yeah,
there was an identity of the team. They were playing football. They were playing out from the back. The atmosphere was good. The team was clicking. But then season 2, there was never a plan B. It was stale. It was like a boxer who never changes his game plan. He fights everyone with the same idea and never changes. And I think that's what happened to Martinez. And then since then, you get a manager, he goes, he gets backed, new players come in. And you just lose that identity, and now it's just like a mishmash of different people's ideals. None of them are amazing, and there's a couple of with the squad we've got. Apart from some of the, if you get that starting 11 out, we shouldn't be where we are. No. But it is down to someone to come in and make them play. Someone's got to be held accountable. And someone made a good comment. I don't know who it was. I can't remember whether it was on here or it was at work last time. That Ferguson doesn't even get up out his seat now. When Rafa was there, it's like he's been cut out.
Yeah.
Completely, and it just makes you wonder, like, who's getting held accountable in the dressing room as, like the Fergie, the old hairdryer, or I believe Archie Knox used to get a wooden bat out, and but that's it though. Like, are you coming in and it's like, oh, it wasn't too bad, we made a few mistakes. It should be coming in. What are you doing? What was that? Like, they should be getting slapped around the chops when they walk into the dressing room for some of the shambles we've seen, and but I suppose that on the other hand, it's how do you play if you don't like the manager and you just can't gel with them, and good world-class players like Dina have fell out with them and they mightn't buy into a system, and we've seen it before with these managers who come in and they're meant to be great tactically. But you know what, mate? You could be great tactically, but if you can't motivate someone because, like Koeman, it's like watching paint dry. Yeah. One monotone voice, same facial expression permanently, wouldn't motivate me to put my drawers on. Never mind. Honestly though, like, so sometimes you just need that right fit and someone who, a bit of passion, and it's just hard. Obviously, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but there's that many factors, and we've seen it all before. You just feel like you're banging your head against the brick wall.
So let's take a step back. Sorry, Dawn, go on.
No, go on, Nick.
I was only going to sort of say, a couple of points we raised there. I mean, the fact is this is going to be Everton's sixth manager in a sort of left equivalent years, but we're tossing them out all the time. Is there any dispute it was the right decision? There's an argument that sort of could be put that says his start to the season when he had a full squad, everyone begrudgingly, I admit it, but was fairly happy. We were getting the results. We were looking all right. Then he's had injury after injury after injury. And only now is probably Saturday was his first game back with his full squad again for about 3 months. So is there any arguments that you maybe should have given him a little bit longer?
No, I mean, there's people saying has he gone too early? And obviously the injuries play a massive part, they do. But for me, you've got to see a step change in how we play. I thought when he first come in, no one wanted him. Apparently the board wanted Martinez, and the owner went and got Benitez against what the fans and everyone else wanted. And he come in, and I thought there was a change in our work ethic. I thought they worked harder, but obviously he has everyone available. Since then, we've literally gone backwards. He's known for shutting up shop at the back and being good defensively, and we've gone so bad defensively. It doesn't matter who he puts there. We're terrible. There's only Pickford really that you can say has been holding his own. So, and then you go to Norwich, like you said, they hadn't scored in 9.5 hours of football. I mean, it's written in the stars, isn't it? They were going to score past us, but that's the final nail in the coffin. And for me, it's been left too long, because when you look at the fixtures that we've got coming up and the teams around us and the points we're on, we're in probably the worst position we've been in a long time. Like, I'm really, really nervous.
Scott, you would have sacked him?
Yeah, I'd have probably sacked him a few games ago, to be honest. I think that when I went that Brighton game at home, it was crap. I mean, it was. I mean, and I know Brighton can play, but when he set up and just invited that on at home and in games where you need to get stuck in, I think that was when I first thought, right, you know what, it is time for the change. And as for the start of the season, you could say, we had a full team selection, but it could have also been that was before the players thought he was a tool.
Yeah.
Or before he implemented his own things completely that started not working. Do you know what I mean? Before he made all the changes, and he might not like the changes. So it's just so hard. But I think definitely the right thing to do, because we've seen it with Martinez, we've seen it with Silva. You know, you end up in a bad position, and without a shadow of a doubt, I'd be looking at. Sorry, just let me look at this. We've got Villa, then we've got 2 weeks break. Brentford in the cup, Newcastle and Leeds. If Benitez was still there, you wouldn't have any confidence going into any of them games. I mean, absolutely. Honestly, like for the first time ever, I was going, I don't fancy you beating anyone. I was going to Norwich. I said it on the podcast last week. Don't fancy it. Wouldn't fancy them beating anyone. And it's actually really sad that.
Yeah.
And, you know, the truth of the fact of the matter is, I mean, Norwich have got Watford, Palace and City. They're never going to get 9 points out of that. But if they did, the 12th of February, we'd be joint third from bottom if we don't win. And that's the reality. So I think at least now he's gone. I don't want to discuss just yet until we move on my thoughts on who they should get. But if the right person doesn't come in, like Dawn, I'm genuinely worried, because I mean, it's probably just been as equally as bad the last 12 games. Bar the Arsenal game, it's been equally as bad as anything I've ever watched at Goodison Park. Like, I mean, and that's saying something. You know, I started watching with Mike Walker, and I don't know how I fell in love with it, but you know, that was rubbish as well.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I mean, I say I sort of go back with Mike Walker and beyond, and this probably is the worst football, and with it has come a most sort of foul atmosphere and feeling around the club, and it's just a number of levels. It's just, my only worry is, here we go with another manager who's got to hit the ground running, and we're in a really difficult position. You know, we have changed quickly. I mean, it's interesting, you know, you mentioned Marco Silva, and you look how well he's doing with Fulham, but there's a counter argument that says that's managing in the Championship as opposed to the Premier League. So who knows? But we are where we are with it. So you did sort of say, well, who are the candidates? I mean, working your way through the list or the latest betting, you've got Roberto Martinez at the top end of that.
I've got to be honest. I'd take Bobby back all day. I think that he's outwardly spoken on telly numerous times, whilst he's been Belgian manager, to say he wants a second chance at Everton to right the wrongs from the first time. He gets the club. He understands it. The best football Everton have ever played in my lifetime, anyway, was under Roberto Martinez. And the only thing that he didn't do is he paid lip service to defend him. Now, you look at Pep come in. Pep brought Bravo in goal and didn't have a great defence, wasn't bothered about it. He soon changed it, and look at City now. Liverpool, Klopp come in, didn't care about defending, had rubbish keepers, rubbish defenders, brought Van Dijk, Matip, Alisson in, and look at them now, one of the best teams in Europe. That's all that Martinez was missing. We will play the likes of Arsenal off the park with our football. And if he can be forced to not pay lip service, and I'm sure he's learned when he's seen Pep and Klopp and other managers change things like that. He's been there before. He's a risk. They're all going to be a risk, but he's a risk that we're aware of what he can give us and what his frailties were. We know that up front because he's been there before. That's my thoughts.
And then we'll stick Scott in the middle, because I'm probably the complete other end of the scale to that one. Martinez had one good season. The rest of it was appalling. He came in and inherited a cracking defence off Davy Moyes that wasn't considering giving many goals away. He broke it up and replaced it with a pile of rubbish that started conceding stupid goals left, right and centre. He nearly took us down. He took Wigan down. He's had the best Belgium team in hundreds of years, and he's won nothing with them either. Slightly being controversial, though, not being rude, but I just think, no, he's had his time for me. Roberto Martinez, not a chance would I have him in the club.
They're all good points, by the way, that you make. I understand completely what you're saying, but even in the difficult season when he like at the end of his Everton career, we were in 2 semi-finals. That's the closest we've got. And we were still terrible at the back, terrible at the back. The likes of Alcaraz, you know, he lost us Europe by not taking him off. I understand all that, but if he's matured as a manager, it's very different. I think managing a country to a club, you don't get as much time with them and stuff. For me, anyone's a risk, but he's a risk that you know a bit more about. That's just my thoughts.
No, absolutely, and that's what this is all about. In some ways, you've got two ends of the scale, Scott, to either get somewhere in the middle or.
Well, look, I've got to be honest. The first season under Martinez was, how's this for you? Phenomenal, right?
Hey.
Well done.
You wearing brown shoes?
Yes, not all right.
But you know what? If I'm completely honest, second season shipped goals, third season shipped goals, nearly got us relegated. I don't like the idea that, like, even when we were playing some abysmal football and we were in trouble, he just kept saying it was good and it was going to be all right, and he might just be saying that to the media, but it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. You've got to, like, sometimes people need to be openly criticised and need to admit, we're in trouble, but we're going to stick together instead of just sort of glossing over and saying it's all going to be all right. I do think when he came and he had that first season, like Nick said, he inherited a good side and they were playing well, and he got them playing a better brand of football. But then once it started going bad, he never had another idea, and that's great doing that when you're playing well. But to come into a side that's in the position where we are, is he? Would it get the rest of the fans on board? Probably not. And maybe if he went to a side that already had, like, say he won the World Cup and he went to manage a top side full of superstars, I should imagine he'd do really well. But so would I. Do you know what I mean? So I think he'd be great in a side, or maybe come back to us if we'd had a few good seasons and we were doing well and we were pushing Europe and he has a bit more under his belt. But I can't see him coming in and doing any type of job while we're playing this atrocious, with this negative feeling, the disconnect between the board, the club, and the fans and the players. I'm just not feeling it, and for me, he's a no. Like,
but it's going to be hard for anyone coming in to do that, isn't it? Because you look at, I agree with what Benitez said. He's trying to fix 5 years of bad stuff in the background, but he's come in and he's got rid of the director of football, which, maybe, Brands should have gone. We do need another director of football. But Brands wasn't allowed to do his job because he wasn't even involved in the recruitment of the manager in the first place and some signings. Then he got rid of all the medical staff. Then one of our starting 11 players fell out with him and is gone. And I know there's loads of problems in the background, but that's not going to be fixed overnight. And whoever comes in has got that to deal with. Like, it's going to be, it's like a poison chalice. There's not many good managers out there that will want the job, because you just look at everyone who's come before. They'll win in the contract 20 million payoff or something like that.
Well, they know they're going to get it, don't they? You come to Everton, have a couple of season and a half, and then walk away with your pockets full. That is the worry, and sort of, you're right, Dawn. Because of the position we're in, it is a poison chalice for most people, which worries me greatly.
See, I am done. I am done with top managers. I'm done with master tacticians, because these lads aren't even doing the basics. They're not honest. Some of them aren't even doing the basics. They're out of position. They're not marking on corners. They're not winning 50-50s. They're not closing down on the edge of the box. They're playing wayward passes. So for me, it's as simple as, you need someone more than anything. You need someone who's gonna get backed. You need someone who's gonna get, no matter what happens, that's someone who's, at least for the next 10 games, who's got to bring an instant resurgence of atmosphere for the club. Yeah. And people had questioned it, but the only fella in the world you're going to get that with is Duncan Ferguson. Now, I'm not saying Duncan Ferguson's a great manager by no stretch of the imagination, and I know it's a massive task. But I tell you what, if there's one fella who I'd want to see on that touchline giving stick out when we play Aston Villa at home on Saturday, but who I think we might get a result with and dig in and get some form of identity, even if they get beat, show some passion and heart and fight for everything. It's got to be him now. Honestly, I don't think he's the answer forever. But you know, what are you going to do? Bring someone else in on good who's you know, we've had Carlo Ancelotti and done all right, but not great. You know, so you've had the most successful manager in the world at the club and done nothing. Yeah. So maybe you just need someone who might be a bit rough around the edges, but maybe you just need someone who's going to kick a bit of backside and put a rocket up some people and let them know. And I just think, you know, that's what you need now. You need an instant fix for the short term.
Yeah.
And maybe not just for a few games, maybe till the end of the season. Just say to them, you've got it till the end of the season. You know, and I know it's not a great idea, but we've tried everything else and none of it's worked.
Yeah, but that's a risk in itself, isn't it? Because Ferguson...
Like you said, though, they all are.
No, they are, but for me, right, look at what Steven Gerrard's done. He's gone and he went to Rangers and now he's at Villa and he's doing better than I thought he'd do as a manager. And ultimately, he wants to go back to Liverpool and to manage them. Now, that's what Ferguson should have done. See, for me, I've got a controversial view on that. Every failed manager, he's been an assistant manager too. And he's not hidden behind the fact that he wants that job. But for me, if he wants that job, he should have done what Gerrard did and gone and got experience elsewhere and brought it back, because at the moment, he's a bit part assistant manager. He's got no other experience than that. I 100% agree, right, on Saturday, he's got to be caretaker manager. He's got to, because, like, I'm excited to go on Saturday, nervous but excited, because the atmosphere will be better because Benitez isn't there. And if Ferguson is on the sidelines, the atmosphere will be better because everyone will get behind him. But when you talk about tacticians and all that stuff, he doesn't have all that in his locker. So
we don't know that. You don't know that.
He hasn't got the experience. He hasn't. If you put him in charge into the season, we will go down.
You don't know that.
He doesn't. He hasn't got enough experience to manage us. Look at Unsworth.
But the ones who have done the same. The ones who have done the same.
Look at Unsworth. When Unsworth managed us, and he stood on the sideline that game when we were getting a hiding, and he sat in his seat, put his head in his hands because he didn't know what to do. And that's why you've got to have someone who's got experience, and that's why Ferguson should have gone out and got experience elsewhere. But I agree, he should be the caretaker manager to start with.
Well, maybe we're sort of taking this a different way around. I think you're right. I think we were probably going to end up with that will be the step for step one. But we've got Duncan for a little bit for now. Let's have a look at who else people are throwing round. It's probably worth a chat over the other names in the frame. I mean, the other sort of heart rather than head one is Wayne Rooney, which I just think's ridiculous when all he's done is prop Derby up on a bit of a shoestring budget. We're happy to throw him out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen, is it? And to be fair, there's a ratio of success there, even on a budget, pretty poor, isn't it?
It isn't good. So the next one, which sort of there's a few people, if you look at the Twitter universe, everyone chasing their head on there at the moment, whichever different point of view they have. But either way, if you look at some of that, Graham Potter's name's in there. Just been interviewed on the TV and didn't quite say no to it. Left probably a couple of cracks in the door. His name was in the frame before we took Mr. Benitez. Where do we sit there? I see a little bit in there. He's built a little bit of a side up with Brighton. Gets people scrapping and working with what he's got. Because at the end of the day, somebody's got to come in and try and get a tune. Is he an option?
I thought he'd said previously he didn't want it. He wasn't interested.
Apparently there's another one today or something where if you believe people's perspective is he's left the door open. So maybe.
He's have to be mad to leave there to take this job.
Be on a lot more money though, Scott, wouldn't he? how much motivated is he? Bigger club, bigger money. Wouldn't you, if you're a manager, you'd take a chance?
Yeah, but he's built there, hasn't he?
He has, but he's probably got as far as he can.
Yeah,
I mean,
potentially.
if you go far enough down the application list, Nick, I know that's not the application list, you'll see one from me. I mean, they're looking at everyone at the moment because no one wants it.
I know. I mean, that's it. Though, if I pinched this one courtesy of somebody with the latest betting on Twitter, and behind Graham Potter comes Frank Lampard. I mean,
I like Frank Lampard, you know.
Would you? What's he done apart from waste a load of money at Chelsea?
But look at a lot of the players that they've got now that they're doing well with were bought by him. He was just he probably hasn't got. He did Derby, didn't he? He did Chelsea for a short period of time. I think he's another one before he takes another big job. Probably needs a championship side or something to get more experience, and then he'd be someone to look at, but maybe not now.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with you. I mean, he conducted himself with great dignity at Chelsea, I thought, and I think you're right, he probably didn't get long enough, but he probably accepted the job knowing he was never going to get much of a time shot at it. So, yeah, I don't disagree with you, Dawn, in relation to there's probably a little bit of potential there, but I keep coming back to this is a relegation battle, and I don't think Frank's got any kind of experience to dig us out of that. Scott?
Do you know what? I do agree with you about Lampard. I do like him. Do you know what? As cheesy as it's going to sound, I just don't think he's Everton. I don't think he's right for it. I think it is a big job, and I just don't think that it brings support. I think it'd be another one where as soon as anything went wrong, he'd just get turned on. And to be honest, I think a lot of that, the way he turns on Benitez, Goodison has got a lot to do with where we are now, compared with everything else. But I just don't think, it's easy saying like the players he bought at Chelsea are doing well. Of course they are. Look at the dough that got spent. It's like you'd expect that, wouldn't you? You'd expect them to be doing well somewhere for the amount of money they paid, and it's just hard. I just can't see him being it. I don't know who's the answer, but
no, I mean another one that's touted round is Nuno. No,
right. Watch him. He's got no charisma.
No.
Who's the? If you got Gattuso on your list next.
He's not actually. He slipped off this one. I don't know whether he's turned us down somewhere along the line.
Yeah, he sort of came flying up the radar a bit earlier on, didn't he?
Yeah.
But you know what, mate? I was looking at him, and I'm not saying he'd be great, but I tell you what, his early career as a manager was pretty poor, but then his last two jobs, he solid the defense up, and his goal difference by the ends was really good, and that's just a massive risk. Another foreign manager coming in with little experiences.
Yeah, that's it for me. This is a completely different appointment. I mean, somebody who's been throwing himself round, if he is to believe, is Slaven Bilic as well. He's trying to throw his name in the vein, but he did he take West Ham down, or did he just about keep them up and then got sacked?
Can't
remember. It's one of those things, isn't it?
He had a decent run with Croatia, didn't he? But again, right place, right time, a bit like our previous sort of Nuno. I just think he inherited a pretty good Wolves team at the time with 4 or 5 good players that made him look good. For me, Nuno's always been Mike Walker in disguise. Mike Walker got the Everton job because he had a good Norwich team and he dropped lucky. He was never a good coach. He was just dropped lucky with some good players at Norwich. And, I apologise, Mr. Santo, but I think he falls into the same place for me. Yeah. So, I wouldn't have that.
On Nuno, I think you've only got to look at Jota for me. Like, he brought Neto in. Jota was still a good player. Jota and Jimenez worked really well together. He put Neto in there instead. Jota didn't play. And they got worse. And then Jota ends up wanting to goes to Liverpool. Like, and you see how well he's doing there. Like, bad decision. I think the one I would have picked years ago, when Mashiri took over, and I'd still stick with it. He'd bring mentality, he'd bring experience, he'd bring aggression, and he would never come to Everton, particularly now, is Simeone.
Yeah.
He would be amazing because he's so aggressive. No one would get away with anything.
Yeah. And the other one that's sort of teetering round tonight is Sean Dyche again.
No, no.
Would you not?
Why would you?
Purely because of what we're facing. He's a bit of an Allardyce appointment potentially for me.
Yeah.
You can get tunes out of average players.
Yeah, but there's two things, isn't there? There's one, survival, and then there's two next season. So we need to survive, yeah. But then we wouldn't want a manager like that for next. It's a bit like Allardyce, like you say, isn't it? We brought him in for a specific job, but you wouldn't want him for next season. I mean, he brought in Tosin.
Oh, I don't disagree with you. I actually think what you said is spot on. I think we're looking to buy ourselves some time here. You know,
yeah,
I mean,
100%.
That's probably why we're back on Duncan Ferguson, because I think your Duncan Ferguson is probably, we've got a game and then we've got a 2-week international break. So I think you're right. For me, you're putting Ferguson in maybe with Leighton Baines or somebody like that for the next game. Then you're having a good look over the next couple of weeks for a longer term manager. If that doesn't happen, then you've got Duncan and that for another couple of games. But I think it is a twofold game. It's just whether, depends how much money Everton want to throw at to stay up. It's probably worth the while spending an awful lot of money. Do you get somebody on a short-term contract that's going to keep it up?
I think that's probably why Martinez's name's thrown in there, because he manages the national side, doesn't he? So he's got more. He could probably do both jobs at this point in time. They could offer him a short-term deal with maybe Ferguson. I don't know.
Do you think the fans would swallow that? Somebody just doing a part-time job at Everton while we're in a relegation battle?
I don't mean part-time. Obviously, most of his time would be at Everton, and then he would go and do the World Cup or whatever. But he's got flexibility to do a short-term contract, is more what I mean.
Yeah, no, again.
Do you know what's hard is that what's hard for me now is in the past, and I don't know whether it's just because I've had enough. You could throw any name in the world at me now, and I'd go, oh, you know, because there's just nobody. Considering what we've had through the door, there's when I said before, I'm not even messing. I'm done with big managers. Like, you know, maybe it's too much. Maybe they're just too much. Maybe I just feel they just need to go back to basics and go, right, boys, before you do any of this stupid crap that's too far ahead for us, just get back to doing normal stuff. Let's start with keeping the ball. Let's start with marking on corners. Let's start with just not upsetting the fans 15 minutes into a game every single week. It's honestly, I can't even get into my own head any type of visible solution for how poor it's been, other than looking and going, by the end of February, we're going to be in the poo, knee deep, and going to struggle.
Have you got
that's where we are now, isn't it? I think we're looking at managers, but at the end of the day, the general apathy around Everton FC, for me, that's a big air worry. You know, with a bit of luck, the players hit a bit of form, we can crawl out of this and finish a few places above the bottom and survive. But what you've got at the moment, to me, is fans that you've just summed it up, Scott, and yourself, Dawn. You can't be arsed, and that's a problem. That's a problem when people have got that apathy. People have been going for 20, 30 years ago, and I can't be bothered with it. And then the can't be bothered seems to come with the lack of communication from the board downwards. Nobody's really addressed all these rumours about who's running who and who's managing who or whatever else. Good organisations communicate well, and they get the messages out. And it might even be the truth, but you get a consistent message that makes you believe you're being told the truth. And there's all this that's going wrong with Everton. So if you've got that there, a team that isn't really performing, if you're a half-decent manager, are you even interested in coming to Everton?
No. Mate, do you know what, Nick? Can you imagine you go on Saturday, right? And it's 35 minutes in, and Dina's whipped a ball in, and Coutinho's scored, and you've got Aston Villa singing Steve Gerrard, Gerrard.
Mm.
I'm going home, mate. I'm telling you now. It'll be the first time in my life I'm going home. It'd just be too much, and I've never gone. But I tell you what, mate, it's just that. Imagine that. Imagine Tina gets a free kick and scores, celebrates 20 yards in front of me in the Gwladys. You know, it's just gonna.
I don't think there's any imagine about it, Scott. Usually those things are written in the stars. It's like when we went to Anfield and Van Dijk was announced as the new player and we didn't get Tosin announced, and it was written in the stars he was going to score against us then. I just think there was an interview with Rooney on like past few days, and the thing that he said he tried to get in their dressing room was characters. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like, Mina and Richarlison are funny and they're like big kids and I like their characters, but there's we need an Al centre half who's aggressive like John Terry and holds everyone. Well,
Gravison. Tommy Gravison.
We need people like now to get out of this mess. If you remember, was it Joe Royal that said, if a crisp packet moves across the pitch, you take it out. Like, we just need aggression like that. We need to kick teams off the pitch. It doesn't matter how we do it. We just need to get out of the hole we're in.
And I think that's it. I think that's sort of the bigger picture that fans should be worried about. For me, is it's a global problem. You know, I genuinely, I know we've been a bit morbid this evening on this show, but I do think we've got enough to get out of it. I think we have got enough to get out of it, but we're not gonna, you know, we'll be lucky if we get by midway by the end of the season with a lot of luck. But it's the longer term problem, which sort of brings us back to where we were about 10 minutes ago. If we're all sort of saying, well, it's certainly Duncan for Saturday, I agree. I think Duncan versus Gerrard on the line should be enough to whip the fans up. Whether it's enough to whip the players up, who knows? But I don't know. I sort of got my hesitancy whether Duncan is the longer term one.
Not for me, purely because he has sat in the background for so long. He hasn't bothered to go and get experience. He's been there through all the you look at the turn in form, like when Martinez, he lost the dressing room, and Ferguson was still in the background there. And if he loves the club as much as everyone says that he does, then why is he not getting into players' heads? Come on, lads, you need to win this. Why is he not? Even if, you know, like Benitez, I don't doubt for a second Benitez has gone, you've been given that job, I don't want you here. And he's sort of cast aside, but he can still put one right up the player's backside when the manager's not there. He can still have an influence.
Martinez told him not to. If you notice, Duncan used to be really just sat there with Martinez. He used to jump up and celebrate, and the rumours I heard was Martinez told him he doesn't. That's how his bench doesn't react, and he put the Quelch on him that time round. But again, I don't disagree with the point you make, though. He has been alongside a couple of other managers. So, you know, again, we don't get the slightest bit of insight, do we, as to what autonomy Duncan had or what ability Duncan had. You know, I would hope he does have a word in a few people's shell, like, but don't know. But so what are we saying? He gets it for a couple of months to the end of the season.
Do you know what I think it's come at a hard time, maybe a good time, but a hard time as well with that break coming up, because if that break weren't there, he's getting it for 4 games, isn't he?
Yeah.
You know, if he gets it for 4 games and then he wins 4 games and they still haven't got someone, you get it for another 4, don't you?
Yeah.
And it sort of goes like that, but it's just so daunting, the thought of. See, for me, it's only a few months, but you just need that. You just need that instant connection between the fans and the club. Like, and 1 game's not enough. And you know, what really, really worries me is you've got Mashiri, who's not public, not voice, not public voice-wise with the club. You know, you're getting messages from Mashiri coming through text to Jim White for information. You know, it's poor. It's really, really poor. And you know, as they say, feces rolls downhill. Well, it doesn't, does it? Because he's not there. No one hears from him. He's having coffee in Monaco with people who are not doing the job.
Yeah.
So like that's a big thing, and I think a lot that's got a lot to answer for, really. And you know, you just need someone you can connect with. I feel like I need someone I can connect with, and someone who I cheer through thick and thin, at least for the short term. And I can't think of another. I honestly can't think of anyone else who I could be bothered with. I'm not even messing. No, it's just so hard.
The worry is that, you know, just to be controversial for the point, Newcastle did that with Alan Shearer. He brought Alan Shearer in for the same reasons that we're probably poking Duncan around. Legend, understands the club. And at the end of the day, Shearer just couldn't manage to save his life, and he took him down, didn't he?
If Alan Shearer was a colour, he'd be beige, wouldn't he? He's boring.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? You listen to him on Match of the Day, he's talking about the top 10 goals of the season, and it's boring, you know?
Yeah. Oh, no, I mean, you read Joey Barton's book. Joey Barton destroys him. Apparently, they had a right kick-off 2 or 3 games before the end of the season in the dressing room, and that's why Barton never played another game while he was at Newcastle. So, yeah, I think, you know, you're right with potentially Shearer against Ferguson's mentality and leadership skills. It's just, is that, you know, ex-hero of the club a risk? I don't know. Yeah. What about Joey Barton? There's a name to throw in the pool. Everyone sort it all out, wouldn't he?
It'd be interesting seeing him on the sideline against Gerrard. He might batter him or something.
And he'd go upstairs and maybe slap a few with the board round if he didn't get what he wanted. Yeah, you never know. There you go. Maybe we just hit the nail on the head.
Right to the Echo, right now.
I'll just go on Twitter now and start the rumour. I've heard, because I'm in the know. It's Joey Barton. What's the head roll?
Do you know what? Like, who would you get, Nick? Like, if you could have anybody, who would you get?
If I could have anybody, and I'm going to embarrass myself because I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy who took Lille.
Samuel Owalezio.
The one, is that his name? The one that took Lille to the championship and then resigned after he won it? Yeah. If that's his name, Scott, hats off to you, because you're a better man than me for remembering that. He seems to, he's won the league with Lille. He's picked up another team now, and he's got them to second in the French league. Maybe. But I personally, I would go Ferguson for Saturday, and then hope the club is intelligent enough and clever enough to work on the basis of this may go wrong in the next 4 weeks, and they're looking for another manager in parallel to that. So if Ferguson continues to win, you don't have to blink. But if he does and he blinks, they've got somebody else lined up. I would hope that's how that's getting lined up, a real strategic approach to it. But I don't know.
The thing is, like, if we had confidence that Ferguson could get us out the hole, I mean, worst case scenario, I suppose it's Everton Legends gets us relegated, and what does that mean for him, and what does that mean for us? If we had confidence, then I don't have confidence in for him. I don't think he's got enough experience to keep us out of the hole. But if you did, it would buy us time, because, I mean, since Moshiri took over, there's no communication, like you said, Scott. The club is a bag of crap. There's no organisation, even at the top. Like, there's no communication. Denise Baxendale should be sorting that out. Like, there's got to be communication two-way. There's no connection between the 23s. Really, we should have a director of football in there who's part of the recruitment process. And just, I mean, he shot himself in the foot. Moshiri, he's having to pay off Benitez because he made the wrong decision in the first place. It's just, it's madness. Our marketing thing is, it's in our DNA as being an Evertonian, but Everton Football Club doesn't have any DNA anymore, because who are we? How do we play football? How do we work? Nothing works behind. Like, we've got no identity anymore. I honestly don't know who we are anymore.
Yeah, it's the cloud worries me. It does worry me. But so if we're sort of working on the basis that it's going to be an internal appointment for Saturday, what are we doing Saturday? How do you think we're going to come? Do you think the players will react well? Do you think there'll be a hangover? What do we think?
I don't think they'll have a choice if Ferguson's in charge, really. The big thing that he had, I can't remember what game it was, the one where the ball boy jumped on him or whatever. we had so many injuries after that game because they all strained themselves because they worked harder than they ever had before. So you would expect a step change and a bounce, but because he has got the mentality to kick them up the backside and hold them accountable. But like, how many of the players are good enough at the moment? I don't know.
See, it is difficult, and it'll go one or two ways, regardless of whether it's Ferguson or not, won't it? Even for the short term, but
yeah,
as a player, they're either going to feel that pressure's been lifted a little bit by Benitez going, because some of the players might be happy he's gone, and some of the things coming from backroom staff and Luca Dina, and some of the rumours are that like maybe he wasn't liked and maybe he was the wrong fit. So as a player, you might feel a bit of relief, and you might feel more confidence in the way that they're gonna play as a team, and everyone might feel better, or it might just add pressure and they might feel worse. But I think, like Dawn said, either way, there's got to be a bit more fight.
Yeah, you would hope. I mean, did you see Jamie Redknapp? He absolutely assassinated Benitez, didn't he, over the weekend? It was an interesting insight, probably backing up all the things that we'd tried to squeeze out of the club about Benitez. If he doesn't like you, that's it, you're out, and him being very stubborn. And so I hope you're right, Scott. One would hope now that the players have got something to play for and something to prove.
I mean, what do you think, Nick, about, like, if you were a player at that club, and I mean, you look at the things, was it Ratcliffe that said that, like, when he left Everton, like, losing never hurt as much as when he played for Everton, and all the players, I'd go through a brick wall for Everton, and I'd die for the shirt, and all those things. And I don't think players, apart from the likes of Seamus, I don't think players care as much as that anymore. But like, if you were one of those players who did care a bit more than the others, and a manager was brought in that none of the club liked, and then he was falling out with people and getting rid of a physio and a medical team that you worked with for years with no apparent reason, like, you'd still try and put a shift in, I guess, but there'd be something missing about your game, wouldn't there? Do you think?
You would have thought. I don't know. I mean, you talk as somebody who, like, with millions and millions of other people who dreamt when they were 6 or 7 of playing for Everton and never happened. You sort of hope that you would have died every time you pulled the shirt on. I do think the era was different, sort of around that 84, 85 side. There were sort of localish players who'd been at the club for a little bit longer. I think a lot of players now are just fly-by-nights, aren't they? In on a couple of years contract, off they pop somewhere else. There's no loyalty, no bond with the club. And that's needed a lot of the time to pick up that I'd die for the shirt. But you tend to hope that this stuff around, well, players are down tools because they don't like Benitez, players are down tools because they don't like Koeman. I'd be embarrassed as a player to do something like that. Absolutely embarrassed, because it's your own personal standing. But I don't know, if I wouldn't be unconvinced if some people told me that some players do sulk. I mean, let's be honest, we've seen over the years players happy to sit on benches for 2 or 3 seasons just picking up a wedge, haven't we? So I don't know.
No, I should imagine, though. Sorry, it's like any job, isn't it? I've worked in places, I won't name them, and some of them I've worked. Some of them I might have worked a couple of years, and then you might get a new senior person in, and they might bring someone with them as well, and they might be a pair of divvies, and you think, I'm off here, and unfortunately for them, they're on a contract, so they can't just get off, so they have to stay, potentially dealing with people that they don't like, they don't connect with, they don't believe in, and that must be really hard to get up and be motivated every day, and regardless of whether the fans are singing or not. If you're not happy, you're not going to be at your best. And ultimately, it's not even just the pressure of performing and getting points on the board, just performing and going to training every day and working with people that you don't like or believe in. I can only imagine it must be really difficult if that was the case.
No, I think you're right. By yourself, Dawn?
I completely understand you, like what you're saying, and sort of, like when I played football, if there was a manager there that I didn't agree with the tactics or didn't like how I was treated, whatever it was, it takes an edge off of what you do. And like obviously me playing, didn't have a crowd, didn't have people that were paying thousands of pounds a year to go and watch me play. Whereas if they can't do it for the manager, then they need to do it for the fans, because every year we're promised a better season, we're promised something better as Everton. We've got loads of money and it never changes. But those players, we don't have enough characters. There's so many players on that side that, like you say, Nick, have down tools numerous times for different managers. What about like caring about that? They pat that enough. What about actually caring and playing for the fans?
And that's, I guess, where we got to hope they do it on Saturday. So how are we changing the team then Saturday?
All of them. Apart from Michelle.
Would you risk bringing Patterson in, 2 new fullbacks? Yerry Mina's got to start, surely.
Look, you know what? It's got to be, hasn't it? It's got to be the 2 new lads, and you go and Yerry Mina, and I know Michael Keane most recently hasn't been the best, but there was periods there where he did play well. So for me, it's if you can go your 3 in the middle after Gomez's game, I wouldn't start him. And then up front, you want Richarlison and Lewin have got to be on the pitch, and then you've got a choice of what Gordon, Gray, and Townsend. So it's hard. Like, you don't know whether, I know Townsend didn't play the other day, did he? So maybe he's feeling a bit after coming back a bit too early. But I do fancy the 4-3-3. But I just want to see the Richarlison and Lewin playing again together and be more aggressive going forwards and not sit back and invite pressure and
absolutely
just try and be more positive.
Yeah, definitely.
For me, I think by all accounts that Mykolenko is gonna be a good player. I don't think he's ready. I wouldn't have him at left back. I would give Patterson a start, because by all accounts the only reason he wasn't starting for Rangers is because Tavernier is their captain. So I'd start him at right back and put Mina back in the middle. Agree with you, Scott. I think Keane's not doing well at the moment, but if he's got Mina alongside him, he's more stable. And I'd put Godfrey at left back, because he's done all right there. He's defensively stronger than Mykolenko, and we just need to stop the goals. I'd have 3 in the middle. Obviously, if Alan's back, to Corey, I'd have Gray and Gordon. I'm not sure about DCL. He's coming back from a long time out. I'm not sure about him. He hasn't offered nothing to us in the 2 games. But if he was on form, then you'd say him up front and Richarlison the whole behind, wouldn't you? But otherwise, it would be Gomez and Ricky up top for me.
Right.
About you, no?
I wouldn't disagree. I think you pretty much got where I was, Dawn. I think you sort of, out of anything out of this season, I don't want, for Seamus's sake, if it ends up with just all this crap that's been thrown at him. I think, whilst it probably is time that he steps out the side, loyal servant's been there for us. So, but I do think his time is coming up. So I do think Godfrey in there is a good shout. I'd like to have a look at Patterson, but it's going to be big stakes on Saturday, whichever way we look at it. Definitely Mina and Keane in there. And I think, I'd be having Richarlison, DCL, and probably Gray. And then your midfield is pretty much as it is. Mixed with Gomez, he carried the ball well a little bit, but then went missing as well. Who knows where Alan is to suddenly go from playing to nothing at all. And Twitter rumours he's going out on loan. Don't know.
I Apparently, he tested positive for COVID the day before.
Is that what it was?
Apparently.
Yeah. Although saying that, I like Alan, but he looks like he's been carrying a truck in his pants for the last couple of games as well, hasn't he? The way he's been running. So who knows? But
don't you think that's because they need 3 in there, Nick? He doesn't have the legs for 2. And the same for Gomez against Norwich. He's not a defensive midfielder, but he's having to do something that he's not good at.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, Decore looked uncomfortable Saturday as well, but he's been good for most of the season, so I'd stick there. Yeah. So we're going to win. There's the big one.
Oh, God. I'm not... I don't know. I'm scared.
No, I'm half a horrible feeling. I think it's going to be one of them draws. I think we might be winning 2-1 and do the Everton thing again. I hope not. I hope Dini doesn't score. I hope Coutinho doesn't score. But they're playing well. They looked all right against United, even though they only drew the game. They looked all right. It's who we have in the dugout and how they can lift us. I tend to think it might be a draw.
Yeah, but I'm gonna try and look for something positive, really, and I'm hoping that some weight has been lifted with Benitez going, and hoping for a bit of a resurgence in attitude and effort. And regardless of who's on that touchline, I think it's got to be Ferguson, though, hasn't it, for Saturday? And I just hope that the tighter at the back, we can stop them conceding and hopefully make a goal. So I'm going to go Everton 1-0, hopefully.
Oh, cool. If you're right.
I hope everyone does. But I think so. Yeah, sorry, Tom.
I was just going to say, don't you? I hate it when the pressure is put on the fans to make a difference on the pitch, because they should do the job and do the job well without us. But I think Saturday we will play a massive, massive part in
it's got to be bouncing, isn't it?
It's got to be bouncing, and we need to make it not toxic like it has been with Benitez, but like a bear pit, like we can make it. Yeah. If Ferguson's on the sideline, people will get behind him, and I think we have to turn up, and even if we concede early, we have to stay positive, because we can't afford to be losing games at home, regardless of it's against.
No, completely agree, and I hope you're right. I hope we're all here next week talking about how much we're back in love with the club, and give it to Per Duncan on a permanent basis. But most of all, hope you've enjoyed having a little listen. Whether you agree, disagree with the three of us over the merits of all the managers, time will tell over the next couple of weeks around where it goes. But most of all, my thanks to Scott and to Dawn for the views tonight. We hope you've enjoyed the Gwladys beat. If you have, let us know. If you haven't, let us know. If you think we've been talking absolute trousers all evening, let us know that as well, because that's what this is all about. It's all about opinions, as we know, and that's what keeps it ticking over. So thank you very much for listening. We'll see you again the other side of the Aston Villa game, and we'll be picking up the pieces then for you.
Fingers crossed.